A couple of weeks ago, I polled my audience and I asked them if they were noticing gluten-free claims being removed from food labels that otherwise had them previously in the United States. And over 600 respondents on Instagram said, yes, they are noticing this. I believe the results around those who didn't notice or just haven't been paying attention was around 200. So I do want to give that context. But I asked this question because as a fellow celiac and as a celiac specialized registered dietitian, this was a trend that I have been noticing in these past earlier months of 2025, and it was unsettling me. So here's what I want you to know if this is something you're noticing within yourself or something that you are worried about in the United States if you have celiac disease or need to be gluten-free for other gluten-related disorders. The first thing that I'm sure you're wondering is, why might this be happening? Why might we be noticing the removal of gluten-free claims from products that used to carry them? And I have a few theories that I'll share with you, but ultimately I want to clarify that I don't know, and I don't know that anyone fully knows. But the first thing that I suspect is playing a role is shrinkflation. With the current economy and things becoming more and more unaffordable, companies are starting to do less, but still sell products at the same price. So I believe that because they're trying to do less, because we're seeing shrinkflation where products are getting smaller or companies are doing less to provide similar products, that we're seeing things of different quality standards appear in the market. Additionally, I'm not fully sure what's happening with our food system and the regulations underneath it at this moment of filming. There's a lot of things that are happening that are not being talked about or not being transparent. That's not transparent. However, I do know in the United States, when the current administration was in office previously, they did do some deregulation to the food system. And so this may be happening here. And I'm not saying it definitely is, but I am saying that we can't rule out that that might be at play as well. Regardless, this happening, noticing this as someone who needs to be gluten-free for medical dietary reasons is unsettling. I feel this with you as a fellow celiac, and there are some things you can do to help reassure yourself and help kind of hold yourself steady as you notice this or see changes in the food system. So I'm going to give you a couple of things now that you can do. First, remember that while gluten-free claims can be extremely reassuring and they are helpful to see on food labels, they reduce the mental burden we have to use to read food labels. They reduce how much we have to look into food labels as people who need to be gluten-free. They are not required for something to be potentially safe for someone who needs to eat gluten-free, whether you have celiac or not. So not everything has to carry a gluten-free claim or gluten-free certification in the United States for it to be safe. And if you don't know the difference between a gluten-free claim and a gluten-free certification, those are two very different things in the United States. And I cover all of this in my totally free label reading class. If you haven't been taught how to read a food label and you have celiac disease, a dietitian, a doctor hasn't sat you down and explained to you where all of the risks really are on a food label in the USA. And if you want to stay up to date to what changes are happening as we figure them out in our food system, the link is in the description box for you to watch that free class, and that'll also put you on my email list so you'll get my updates as they happen, as I'm made aware of them. So that's there, but remember, not everything needs a gluten-free claim or certification for it to be safe. So it is unsettling to see companies remove these claims from products that used to have them. And remember, they're not required for a product to be safe. So still use your safety techniques. Still look at the food label and evaluate everything else to see if it's a potential option. If you are seeing that gluten-free claim removed, I know you're scared. I know it's unsettling, and that product still could be an option. So check it. Check the label. Which takes me to number 2, you are your best line of defense no matter what's happening in the food system, no matter what's happening in the current climate, you are your best line of defense. So make sure you're staying informed, make sure you know what to look for, make sure you know what to avoid, and make sure that all of that feels routine. Because if you can trust yourself to keep yourself safe, no matter what nonsense is happening out here, that is going to make things feel way less scary. I'm not saying it's going to make it not scary, because it is unsettling, but it's going to make it way less scary. And again, if you need that support and reassurance, you want to build that trust in yourself to know what to look for on food labels. I teach you for free in that totally free label reading class that's linked in the description box. Everyone who has taken it has had nothing but great things to say about it. So please go watch that if you haven't been taught how to read a food label. And again, remember, you are your best line of defense. You being informed, you knowing what you need to look for, not what another celiac needs to look for, not what another celiac says they're looking for. If you knowing what you need to look for and making that informed choice for yourself is your best line of defense, make sure that you are building that skill set. I help you do that in that free class. Additionally, I do want to give you some action steps that you can employ, especially as we move throughout these next couple of years and we're unsure what is going to happen to the food system. I want to give you a few action steps that you can employ to help start to try to protect gluten-free claims and the regulation of allergens and all of that on food labels. And with that, specifically in the celiac and gluten-related disorder realm, it's really important as we're talking about a gluten-free diet right now in these next 4 years, starting from 2025, that we are centering the celiac and gluten-related disorder community. We are centering that this is a medical diet that is required for vulnerable communities and needs to be made available. It is so important we are centering that before we're centering other things like how a gluten-free diet may be unhealthy for the general public and how a gluten-free diet requires a lot of nutritional modifications in order to make sure you're getting and meeting your nutrient needs, and that's why it could be harmful for the general public. We want to make sure we're not centering the general public here, and we are keeping the gluten-related disorder community, celiac, non-celiac, gluten sensitivity, wheat allergies, all of that. We want to make sure these communities are at the front and that they are protected and that they are seen, and that we are not making it potentially, we're not creating an environment where it would be more acceptable for regulations that don't support this medical diet to be put in action, if that makes sense. So keep the medical necessity at the front. It's totally fine to remind people that if you don't need to be gluten-free for a gluten-related disorder, if you don't have celiac disease, you don't have non-celiac gluten sensitivity, what have you, that it is generally not the healthiest option for people. If you can include whole gluten-filled grains in your diet because you don't have a gluten-related disorder, that is your best option. That's totally fine to have in these conversations, but we want the priority to be making people aware that there are medical communities, medical diagnoses, medical conditions that require this diet and require these protections. That is the priority in these conversations. Hold that at the front. And that's all that I think I have to share with you today in talking about how a lot of you have noticed gluten-free claims are being removed from food labels and how it's unsettling. And I hope that this reassured you, that this gave you ways for you to start keeping yourself safe and trusting yourself, and also ways to start actively, outwardly protecting the community. All of that said, my name is Taylor Silverduke. I'm a registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, and I hope that if you want more content from me, you'll hit that subscribe button. If you found this helpful, informative, please give it a big thumbs up. And all of that said, I will see you when I see you.